Hey everyone, this video is about Tidepool 032, the newest version in over 2 months. In that time, other than the Kickstarter, I fixed about 16 bugs, and I also added some features having to do with crystals, the in-game currency, which I'll show you now. Okay, so crystals have always been in the game, or they've been, since very early on. And you can see the number of crystals you have by opening up the lexicon with Control L and looking at the bottom, and it shows you how much you have. And it also shows to other players, as you can see. So you use crystals when you melt and cast items in the world. And I'm going to run around and look for one. Oh, there's a gem. And I'm going to run up to it. And you can see that if I melt this, I'm going to get one crystal from it. So if I double click it, it goes to 501. So a question I get a lot is, how do I get more crystals? And I just showed you one way, but what's new to this release is that these gems, which will improve in their visuals, I just grabbed an asset that I had and colorized them. These spawn every hour in every parcel. Now you can see this one is orange and it has a different value. The colors correspond to the spectrum. So red is the most common and costs the least, which is one crystal. And then orange, red, orange, yellow, blue, green, and I skip indigo and I go straight to purple. So if I double click this, I get 5. And as you would expect, the higher level crystals are very rare. You're going to see maybe one purple in like 15 or 20 parcels, and that's worth 1,000 crystals. So those are going to be sought after. So there are only 25 crystals in every parcel that can fit. So right now, since I melted a bunch of these, if I come back in an hour, they'll be replaced. So one of the ways to get crystals is to simply log in, harvest some crystals, come back. One controversial decision that I made is that you can harvest gems on other people's parcels. Even if you don't have permission to change anything else, you can still always harvest gems. I'm doing this because I want to encourage people to run around the world and see parcels they've never been to before. And so this idea of logging in and running around and checking things out is a great way just to get people out of their own parcel and checking things out. Okay, so that's harvesting. That's the main way that you get crystals. The next main way that you get crystals is when players give crystals to you. So for example, here I have Green Gozer, who's logged in right now, and I decide I'd like to give some crystals to Green Gozer. I can do that in one of two ways. I can either click on their name and click Give, and then here it says Green Gozer, and because there's only one person in my roster right now, I'm giving all my crystals to Green Gozer. You can also select who you want to give it to. And see this slider here, this corresponds to whether I want to give all of them or none of them. You can see it starts out at 50. So if I move it up, I can go all the way up to 504. So I can give Green Gozer all of my crystals, or I can go back to none. So let's just give, I don't know, 70 sounds good. And click Give. And you can see that Green Gozer has more crystals and I have less crystals. So that's one way to give. The other way is on the command line with the Give command. I can just do Give Green Gozer. Let's round it up. Let's just say, I don't know, 15 crystals. And it looks like a bug. It didn't update for some reason. So I'm pretty sure Green Gozer got them, but it just didn't show up here on the screen. All right. This is a pretty untested version, by the way, so just be aware that little things like that. So that's one way to do it. And the big way, the most important way, has to do with stories. And you can see that now we have this big give button instead of what was the send button that nobody used. And this allows you to give to the story owner and everyone that contributed to the story easily. Before I show you how to do that, I'm going to talk a little bit more about story costs. If you hit F10, you can see this new metric here, which is cost, and it's going up while I'm doing nothing. So what this means is that while I'm in a story, while I'm playing a story, and this includes parcels, crystals are being drained. Think of crystals like batteries that are used if you leave them running. So as you can see, this particular cat here is contributing to it because it's animating. And the rule is, the bigger something is, the more crystals it drains. So for example, this is contributing to the drain. Now it's not a lot of drain. It's just, we're going to play around with the numbers, but right now you can see that it's going up slowly, fractionally. So we haven't even gotten to 2 whole crystals cost. Now what happens is as you play a story, the story owner is liable for the crystals that you're using. And if I leave this story, so if I go back to my home, for example, watch down here, it says 1.77. It says you drained 1 crystal from Imuexa. So I'm taking crystals away from the story owner by playing their story. Notice that it rounds down. You can't have a fractional crystal. Notice now that this is reset and it's going up again. We don't have quite the number of things going on in this one. So crystal use, crystal costs of a story correspond to how many moving pieces it has, how many things are showing, how many things are animating. It corresponds to scripts, how many conditions are being checked, how many messages get sent. So if you have a lot of moving parts, if you have things bouncing off the walls, it's going to cost more crystals. And this corresponds to what you expect. If you had battery-operated toys that are running all over the room, they would use batteries. So it's meant to provide a way for people to get benefit from stories, and also encourage economy, trying to do more with less. All right, so here I am costing poor Imuexa crystals, and I really like their story, and I'm sad that I'm costing Imuexa all these crystals. So what can I do? Well, there's this big give button here, and this is different than this give button. This has to do with players. This has to do with the story. So if I click give, and you can see that right now I'm about 1.5 crystals in. It gives me a list of all of the people that have contributed to this story. Starting at the top here, you can see that Imuexa is the story owner. The story owner always gets the lion's share of the crystals because they're the ones that are paying for you to use the story. And it also says that Imuexa made a bunch of words, Imuexa made a bunch of items, and I actually go through and I calculate the percentages for all of these people. So these are different players that have added to this story, whether they've created words that I or Imuexa cast, or whether they made items. And so you can see here that this slider works the same way, and says I've spent 1, and I can give more than that if I want to. And you'll notice that as I go up, it does the giving proportionally. So I could give, 419 crystals, and then it breaks down like this so that everybody gets a small slice of it. And this is all automatic and very easy to do. So I decide, I really like this. So I'm going to give 50 crystals, and that's going to be broken down like that. And no, you can't change these individual things. This is part of the mechanism. I click give, and then it gets deducted from my account and it gets added to the other accounts. So I just donated to the story. And this is the primary method for earning crystals in the game, is that you want to make a story that people like so that they give you crystals. And, I'm hoping that the default mechanism is one of charity in the game rather than, selfishness. So, what if you're just getting started and you don't have people using your stories? Or what if, you don't want to run around and harvest a bunch of gems all the time? Well, there is the way that makes my company money, which is you click buy. And you can purchase crystals directly. So you can either do it in 1,000 crystal blocks for $1. And if you do more at a time, you get extra, 10, 15, 20% extra. You can also subscribe, and that gives you 100 crystals a day or 250 crystals a day, depending on which subscription that you do. And this is the way that we make money, primarily. It's all voluntary. No one has to purchase any crystals. We're hoping that people will use this as a way to save themselves time, not have to run around and harvest a bunch of crystals, and also as a way for them to give back and help us improve the game and do more publicity and outreach. So if I click one of these, it's going to go straight to the website. There we go. And it allows me to put my credit card number in there and purchase the crystals. And they go directly into the game right after you do it. So they'll get added right here. Subscriptions, you get your daily crystals at noon Eastern time every day. So all that stuff works. And, by all means, feel free to try that feature out. We could use all the help we can get, especially after having our Kickstarter fail. We raised $5,000, but we weren't able to use any of it. So that's it. That's all the new stuff. Now, there's some other secret commands that nobody else can use but me. Like I can pay people directly crystals, so I can just say, hey, Green Gozer, here's 1,000 crystals. But that only works. Oh, did I type it in wrong? Pay Green Gozer 1,000. So yeah, this isn't updating. I'm not sure why. And I can also drain crystals from people as well. But as I said, you have to be an admin. Okay, have fun. And we got some bugs to fix and some small things to do. And probably have a point release next. And then we're going to go into Colossal Cave. Thanks for listening.